Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about transit Chiron Sextile or Trine, one's natal Saturn. Now, this transit could manifest in physical and emotional wounds, helping and healing others, depleted self-esteem, being in harmony with one's career, laborious work, responsibilities. And I'm going to elaborate and expound on that. Naturally, you're not your career, having depleted self-esteem is not going to be in literal harmony with one's career, but one's career, accomplishments, that could be beneficial to diminish self-worth at this time when this transit takes place. It's also about working, laborious work can make you feel better about yourself, accomplishing things through, persistent, hard efforts. And it's also helping and healing, people at this time. It could be, through mentoring. Saturn is connected, with mentoring. If you have your natal Saturn, say it's in Aquarius, mentoring may be through astrology or astronomy, computers, electronics, meteorology as some examples. Now, what I want to say though, as far as the transit of Chiron, of course, that doesn't supplant or replace your natal placement, your natal Chiron. The natal Chiron is with you for the duration and entirety of your life. Now, the transit Chiron, though, that could have some effects. Since it's a sextile and trine aspect, in this case, it can be to your benefit during the time of the transit, but it doesn't replace, what your current, what your, natal placement is. And some of you may wonder, well, what's the difference between this transit, the sextile or trine transit, in contrast to the conjunction transit? Well, the sextile and trine conjunction, they're comparable, but they're not precisely or exactly the same. The sextile and trine is more flowing aspect. It's a good relationship between, in this case, the transit of Chiron and the natal Saturn placement, where the conjunction with Chiron and Saturn, it's more, integrating and intensifying. It's more of a concentration, of energy. And, when you have, like, say, what happens is when you have, a conjunction, it could be to the point where, it's so intensified, you might be, doing something, so strongly connected with it, where it's so, where that energy is so emphasized, where it's to the point where it's to the exclusion of other things. Like, say, if you have the transit Chiron making a conjunction to your natal Saturn, that could be, you could be healing others, through mentoring, but it can be to the point where you're forgetting, about other things and you're oblivious to other things in your life, or in some cases it could be, some physical related suffering that's associated. It could be with Saturn, body parts like the knees, the bones, the joints, hamstrings, gallbladder, or it could be, some suffering connected with the chronic debilitation, which may be, associated with the sign that Saturn is in. And it's a neutral conjunction, is a neutral aspect, and the sextile and trine, of course, they're auspicious and harmonious aspects. But anyway, now this transit, though, when you have this, it's also about, working through, limitations at this time. It's less likely that, if you're going through any physical related trauma, that it's going to limit you, at least not as much as it may have inhibited you in the past. It's working through, those issues at this time. And it's really, Saturn is also about our fears. So it's about, really, if there was any fear, and just reaching out to others simply and trying to help them and heal their suffering, this is a time where that's more likely to be discarded. And it's also a time as well where, if you're going through, again, the fact that Chiron is connected with depleted self-esteem, taking care of responsibilities, being more mature, being, more adult-like, can, really alleviate those issues at this time, especially if you've been, in a situation where, you haven't felt like, you've done the things, that a mature person should be doing or being responsible. If you shirk responsibilities, this is the time where this energy can be positive for really feeling better about yourself by taking care of those responsibilities at the time of this transit. Now, another thing too is if you're going through anything, anatomically, connected with Saturn, something with the knees, the bones, the joints, hamstrings, gallbladder, or even, some chronic illness. And, this is the time where it may be more of an opportunity to be healing those matters. Or let's say, if you're a spiritual person, people that are spiritual that could be, at some, church congregation or what have you. Those people may be there for you for support at this time. And, and just really we're, getting in touch, emphasizing spirituality more, maybe to your benefit. That is, if you are, somebody that is spiritual. And this is also, if you have, like, your natal Saturn, let's say you have the natal Saturn in the zodiac sign Cancer, there can be a propensity for chronic illness associated with the chest, the breast, the stomach, the ribs, or even something with water retention. And this is a time where, it may be a time for healers to be able to help and be to your benefit in those matters at this time. And Chiron is also about, feelings of ineptitude and weakness. Now, the ineptitude, could be something where you're truly inept in, or it could be something, that might be, imagine I have my natal Chiron in Aries in the 12th house of of that imagination. So, when you're talking about, the natal Chiron being in Aries in the, in the 12th house of that imagination, it could indicate, the feelings of ineptitude to, maybe perceived, lack of courage or initiative, what have you. It can be fortitude. It can be something that might be in my mind to some degree. And when you're talking about the Chiron in general, sometimes, the feelings of ineptitude can be, about, what you believe or perceive. In some cases, it might be real though. And when you have this transit, of Chiron, it's a time where, if there's any feelings of ineptitude or weakness, it's a time where the father, authority figures and older people can be beneficial to it, can be there, even if it's just for, for moral support, or it could be for some advice and insight as to how to deal, with the situation, and for them, to be able to work through, those issues at this time. And it's a time, I'd say too, considering Saturn is associated with fears, that it's a time, if you have any, physical or emotional wounds, it's time to work through, any fears if you haven't been able to actually look them in the eye, figuratively speaking. It's a time as well, where, when you have this transit, it's also about, Saturn is about structure and discipline, and that could help you, getting more structure and discipline in your life in general. It might go a long way toward maybe doing something about what the suffering you're going through, at this point in time, and may not get rid of, if it has to do with some memory you have, you're lamenting over something, but just simply being more responsible, getting structure and discipline in your life can help, at least, even if it's just a diversion from, what's going on that you may be enduring at this time that may be negative. Now, another thing too, another way this transit could manifest, it could be, where it's positive for helping and healing, which is Chiron, and others, as I was stating before, through mentoring, which is Saturn. Let's say if the natal Saturn is in Gemini, as an example, it could be mentoring, in some communication field, such as data or satellite communications, or teaching people how to write better. It could be through manual dexterity, um, as such as auto or refrigeration mechanics. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, now also too, issues with depleted self-esteem, which is Chiron, may be dealt with by doing something with strong concentration, which is Saturn. Now, let's say if the natal Saturn is in Sagittarius, what you may be concentrating on could be associated with sports, athletics, something with the outdoors, such as camping. Um, it could be doing something college related, something with higher education or publishing, as some examples. Now, it's also a time where it can be propitious to deal with suffering, which is Chiron, and being assisted by the father, older people, authority figures, which is Saturn. Let's say, for example, if the natal Chiron is in Capricorn in the 8th house, it could be maybe you've been victimized by a business, which is Capricorn, crime, which is the 8th house. Um, and also, another thing too is that physical and emotional trauma, which is Chiron, may be helped. It could be simply formulating, a plan. Saturn is about planning, and the Saturn, natal Saturn is in the zodiac sign Cancer, as an example. It could be planning something connected with the family or real estate, or maybe some food, business, or something associated with the laundry or plumbing business, as some examples. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying, stay well.